up, sexy people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from Norwegian heavy rock warriors, Håndgemeng. The band's new album, Satanic Panic
Don't do
Attack,
what?
released on April 11th via Ripple Music.
How do you pronounce that band again?
I mean, like, I've been calling them Håndgemeng, but I don't know if that is accurate or...
If the band are checking this out, I demand that you record a new album which is just full of songs where you describe phonetically the name of your band.
For this review, I will be calling them Håndgemeng. 5 damn dudes banished from the pits of hell, smelling of brimstone and cheap beer. Brought up on heavy metal and rock and roll, brewed together with a bad attitude and devil worship, and from that cauldron, Håndgemeng emerges, guitars in hand. Get ready to experience the doom and roll extravaganza as they play to entertain the devil himself. Riff after riff after riff, Håndgemeng will take you from the depths of hell to the farthest reaches of space. Together we will escape prison planet Earth, if just for a little while. Under the eerie glow of the supermoon, the motorcycle death cult gathers in parts unknown, ready to perform the infamous Ultra Ritual. As the night deepens, the air crackles with anticipation, and the roar of engines fill the darkness. This is no ordinary gathering. They are here to summon the Cauldron Born, a demon also known as Medieval Knievel, a powerful entity that embodies chaos and fear. At the centre of the ritual, the cult invokes the name of the motorcycle-riding demon, Medieval Knievel. With each rev of their bikes, they channel energy into the night, calling forth Knievel to rise and unleash a wave of satanic panic attacks upon the unsuspecting world. The ground trembles as the demon emerges, a harbinger of dread and madness. As the denim-clad cult members chant in unison, the atmosphere thickens with tension. Those who walk the path less travelled feel the fear they instilled spreading like wildfire, and soon it becomes clear. We are all going down below, drawn into the chaos that the Ultra Ritual has unleashed. The line between reality and nightmare blurs, and in the shadows, the motorcycle death cult revels in the panic they create. Don't worry, it's only black magic. The new album was produced, mixed and mastered by Ruben Willem at Caliban Studios. That was a lovely wee press release. So, we reviewed the previous Håndgemeng album, Ultra Ritual, back in 2023. We both liked the previous album, had some issues with.
Yeah, so I did my due diligence. It was funny you went back to check the pronunciation.
Yeah.
I went back to see what I scored it because I very quickly listened to it. My opinion hasn't changed. I gave it 3.5. I said that it reminded me of a lot of bands, but what was missing was maybe the band. like kind of, like it felt like they were hitting all the high points of the genre, but I didn't feel like I had any idea who the band were.
Yeah.
By the end of it.
Yeah.
So
same. Yeah. I was kind of interested to hear where they would go with album 2 because I feel like a lot of issues we had with Ultra Ritual may have been down to the fact that it was their first album,
I think,
and they were still trying to figure out, what kind of band, what kind of album they wanted to make. Because, I mean, there was bits I really liked of the album, and then there was certain areas where I felt like it didn't quite work for me, but the influences were very obvious on the first album. So I was hoping this release would start to hear them kind of deliver something, a bit more individuality. So what do we think of Satanic Panic Attack? Firstly, before we get into that artwork might be the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Like in a week where we have reviewed the brand new Death Heaven album, which has this like beautiful kind of, could have almost been a watercolor painting of someone leaning over a car. You could be forgiven for thinking that the album covers have been mixed up here. All I'm going to say is I love, 1, the fact that they're in corpse paint. I love 2, the fact that they're a bunch of grown, sweaty, hairy men like hugging in together, bollock naked.
Yeah.
I will say the thing that I don't like about the album artwork is I can imagine the smell of that room. tit, sweat, and beer. Like, I mean, it's not what I paid for. But yeah, it's a great fucking album cover.
Yeah.
I think it sums up the album fucking perfectly as well.
It does. So tell us, what did you think of Satanic Panic Attacks?
I think this is fucking great. So I'll get this out of the way right away. Like, it's why like you will something out into ether, right?
Yeah.
You put your opinion down and you put out there and you're like, one, I don't think for 1 second we had an impact on this, but two, I think we were smart enough to see the abilities there.
Yeah.
It just needs time. It needs time, it needs motivation, and we'll see where it goes. This is where it goes, ladies and gents. This is an album front to back with the fucking coolest groove riffs you're going to hear this year. This is Church of Misery-tastic when it comes to the groove. Not as heavy. No. But it's like as much as I really enjoyed that previous Orange Goblin album, this shits in it from such a high height I can almost not see the Orange Goblin album. There's a few things that they're a band that have a sense of humour, right? But they're a band that have on this album 100% found their sound, right? Norway's such an interesting country when it comes to music. When you listen to the other Scandi like nations do kind of 70s inspired rock, it tends to be much more serious. And for whatever reason, Norway just seems to have a sense of humour on it. For a country that's known for burning churches, you know, they seem to have a lot of spring in their step while they're doing it. These guys here just have a wicked sense of humour, but they have that the same way that a band like Kvelertak will use kind of 70s inspired riffs, and that's kind of as prominent in a lot of bands now that we've reviewed from that part of the world. They do that as well, but it's like the more fun 70s inspired riffs instead of like the doomy, slow, the smoke machines on, everyone's got long hair and tassels on their jackets. This one is just it's all hooks. Like every riff has a hook. Like I was on the train listening to this, right? And I was trying to stifle down cries of "Hail Satan!" like that, like on Medieval Knievel, which is like the greatest name for a fucking track, hands down ever. Like had I not committed to not having another child, the third child would be called Medieval Knievel, hyphenated, obviously. So what the band for me have shown in the 2 years in between is a growth which a lot of bands don't achieve until about album 3 or 4. And it's, we mentioned this a lot, but it's the flow for me on this album that is just impeccable. Musically, it just sounds like almost a different band. It just feels like the riff writing process is completely different. Vocally, this is fucking huge. Like the kind of gang vocals, absolutely amazing, especially in the melody. But they've managed to somehow craft tracks that are just full of 70s-tastic riffs, with a kind of punky doom roll edge to them, but found the perfect production to underlie that. This production has a haze about it, which is kind of fucking great. It's like just an authenticity that just makes it like makes everything pop and just highlights the sound overall. The tracks, I didn't know it was a concept album. You could pretty much tell it was a concept album from listening to it though, because it does it. Like it does kind of, to me, the word that came to mind was ritual, which was funny because the previous album was also ritual based, and I was like that one didn't feel like it had any like cohesion at all. But this one kind of felt like it was telling us a story. It had movements and actions, call and repeat. Really fucking good. Kicks off with an absolute blinder in The Cauldron Born. It's fucking great opening track, and it's the one that kind of, from the moment the actual music kicks in after the samples and stuff, you get like this just total like 70s I'm on a Harley driving to hell sort of vibe about it. It's a cool opening track. It's not overstated. I don't think they come at the gate with the best song either. But it's got a huge fucking chorus, a little blackened tinge to it. It's kind of like the production is really, really cool. And then Medieval Knievel kicks in, and that is a fucking home run banger. Like I said, it's hard not to be like, Hail Satan! But then when you get Satanic Panic Attack, which is the title track, I think that to me was when I was like, this is fucking something special. The riffs on that track are back to back fucking bangers. Like every riff is preceded by a riff that I'm like, that is fucking awesome. And it just adds another one, you're like, no, that's fucking awesome. And it just like the album, and this might sound like a slight, and it isn't. It doesn't give me anything that I have not heard before.
Yeah.
But they do it so well. And they understand that there's a time to reinvent the wheel and there's a time to double down on it, and they double down on the sound here in a way which is just fucking so enjoyable to listen to. I mentioned Church of Misery earlier on. The reason I love Church of Misery is they know their sound, right? They know what they're trying to achieve, and when you sit and listen to one of those albums, you know every riff has been tailored to give you the groove. Every riff has been tailored to drink beer to, throw horns up, and headbang, right? Håndgemeng, if we're calling them that, are exactly the same. Like they have crafted an album that I think they themselves would like to drink beer, throw horns, and headbang to, and that kind of is infectious to listen to. It's the best word I could describe. I had like front to back the most fun listening to this album, and every track that finished, I was like, like the next track would come and I'm like, fuck, let's do it again. It's also not long, so they've understood the brief, and I've kind of kept it focused on amazing riffs, cool vocal hooks, great production, and good times. It's a vibe album, like all the way through. I just felt those 70s vibes. And whilst the album artwork is a little bit of a kind of like corpse paint, like for someone that's uninitiated, like most Norwegian bands, it exists somewhere in the background of their sound. So it fits. It's not just like, it's obviously provocative in its image, but they add those elements where things get a little bit sharper, a little bit gnarlier, but it's always just as like an extra string on the bow. It's not like a prominent feature on anything they do here. It's hard to even pick a standout track. Like I say, every song you're like, and like the first time I listened to Sundrinker, I was just like, this track is just layered upon layer of just fucking awesome groove riffs. Like the sort of riffs that you just like, that's a banger. Oh, and they wrote another riff that went with that, which is a total banger. This is fucking great. And it doesn't drop the ball at any point for me. Like right to the end, right to Supermoon, the album continues to just be really fucking interesting, deliver the message in, be a ton of fun, and it closes out. It closes out like a kind of almost the 70s, whirly, like kind of doodly woodly. Like I could almost sit down here and write, the band reminds me of it, and write 10 bands and hand it to the band, and they would be like, yes. Like it's like they're kind of like a Norwegian, like Allman Brothers. It's the weirdest fucking shit. It works. It works so well, and I've never been so happy to say that, because I saw it like in the first album when I'm like, there's stuff here. There's an idea here. There is a sound here that I want to listen to, that I want to spend time enjoying. But it's like they get distracted. It's like they're almost like getting distracted by other things in the room or other bands, and it just lacks cohesion. And it's they've just found that and locked everything in. And this is such a fucking confident release. It's fucking to album number 2. This is fucking scary. They've found their sound. They are now they've arrived, the butterflied out with black corpse paint on and ready to shock and ready to shine. And I've never been so, I wish I lived in Norway right now to see these guys. I think this is fucking great. I had so much fun listening to this. I don't think they put a wrong foot at all on this album. Yes, it's nothing you have not heard before, but I'll tell you right now, there are bands that are trying to be the gimmick, and they're bands that live the gimmick. And Håndgemeng are a band that live the gimmick, and as a result, the music just feels authentic from front to end. I thought this was fucking great, Dave. Don't you dare disagree with me, because this may be a friendship breaker. How did you get on with Håndgemeng?
Håndgemeng. Yeah, so I was like extremely excited to hear where they'd gone with this. And as I said, in the background, I was just waiting for them to find their sound, to find that more kind of that bit of individuality on this album.
Find a story. I love it. Even from reading, you read that press statement, I was like, yes, that's what this album is. Yeah. You've articulated it in 2 paragraphs. Well done.
So I hit play on the album, and the Cauldron Born kicks in. I was like, here we go. And I was like, oh, hold on. It's like, guys, what's happening here? It's like, that sounds very much like Kvelertak.
A little bit.
Try it one. I was like, wait a minute here.
Bit of an influence, Dave.
Oh no.
The Norwegian, Dave. I think you kind of have to if you're in there. It's like how every French death metal band now sounds kind of like Gojira.
Yeah.
And it's just because they're there, and it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, I mean, it's catchy, and it's got all the twin leads and the harmonies, even the burst of black metal, it's all there. But I was just like, this is cool, but it's very familiar. I was like, guys, come on. What happened? I was hoping you were going to pull through. And then Medieval Knievel kicked in, Duncan.
Satan, Dave.
I was like, hold on a minute. What the fuck's this? What's going on now? Complete switch. This is where things kick into gear for me. And that second track has a bit more of a kind of a heavier groove to it. Almost I think the last album they were talking a lot about stoner core, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And that comes through on this track for me. I was getting a lot of that. It's got a bit of a dirtier feel to it. Almost kind of sludgier kind of texture.
There's a kind of desert rock sort of thing, in the back. A little bit of Caius, actually. It's not too dissimilar. So
there's even a bit of kind of rock and roll piano comes in the background.
Andrew WK makes a guest appearance.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit. And vocally you can hear some of the kind of the hardcore and the punk influence coming through that's prior to this band they had in the past. Almost kind of Turbonegro kind of esque in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
Ends in a kind of big filthy riff as well. I was like, holy shit, okay, this is done a 180 from that opener, which was good, but a touch predictable, to this, which is much more interesting and dynamic. And for me, the album then starts to take shape and kind of project more of the band's personality from that point on. The title track for me had a hint of the Motörhead about it, but with a more kind of stoner, kind of classic rock kind of influence. Great variation in tempo. Really cool switch into this kind of hooky psychedelic section that kind of just blazes out into the end. And it was a clever addition to that track, because track 4, A Path Less Travelled, kind of leans more into that kind of psych kind of element. There's a bit almost kind of space rocky at times. But it doesn't sound out of place because of what they did on the previous track. And I think that's one thing that didn't quite work as well on the debut. The changes were a little bit kind of here, there and everywhere. It didn't have much in the way of kind of linkage, but I feel like they've thought about that much more on this one. You can hear the planning and how they're going to drop an idea here and then expand on it more in the next track. So cohesively, this feels much more noticeable here. And when they get it right, it's so fucking good. Track 6, you mentioned the Sun Drinker. Love that track.
Riff
it's
after riff.
It is more a more stoner Church of Misery. Big smoky riffs, bluesy guitar leads, and the vocal much better cleans on this one as well for me. I didn't feel they always nailed the clean vocal on Ultra Ritual, but the cleans on tracks like the Sun Drinker are just spot on, really good. Sound much more confident on this release. You can hear he's going for bigger notes. They're also layering in a bit more kind of texture and the vocal, which really works in the kind of the bigger parts. And again, they get a bit more kind of bluesy on the Sundrinker. So when they kick into Down Below, which is very blues led, and in the guitar work, it's got a bit of a dose of like the Sword in there as well. Again, it doesn't sound like a step too far. It's been kind of linked in previously. The closing track is interesting. Supermoon. It's the longest track, so there's like a bit more of a build to it. Starts off like if Opeth went a bit more folky. That's kind of how I imagine they would sound, but it goes from there into this like kind of heavy kind of blues riff, which was like this wouldn't be out of place on a fucking Roadhouse soundtrack or something, like it's got that kind of feel to it. The middle part is cool though, like it's all like psychedelic and hazy, but with these kind of like female backing vocals. And then it leads into something a bit more retro kind of 70s character with that big kind of heavy groove to finish things off, which for me was like a much stronger ending than they had with Ultra Ritual. So I finished the album just like way more satisfied than I did with the debut. I felt like this was the album that showed the personality, like more focus, more cohesion, had just a better design overall. It still shows like kind of multiple sides to the band's sound. So although like they've tightened things up, it had a really cool mix of styles to kind of keep you engaged. And more importantly, I think they've blended them much better on this release. Yes, there's still influences there. Apart from that first track, they're not quite as obvious as they were on the previous album. Production as well, I feel like production's a bit more refined on this one. Ultra Ritual had quite a rugged kind of sound to it, which kind of worked for that album, but I actually prefer what they've done here. It's a bit fuller, a bit more kind of rounded out. It's still got that like kind of feeling of kind of like a retro kind of feel, but they haven't gone like fully modern on it. I think the balance is pretty good on this one in terms of the production as well. So like for me, like a much bigger, big improvement for me from album 1 to album 2. You can feel the band now starting to find their sound, which I felt like they were kind of trying to get on album 1, but never quite found it completely. This one was so much better for me. So final thing, scores for Håndgemeng's second album, Satanic Panic Attack. Duncan, what's your score?
So I gave the previous album a 3.5.
Right.
This one is a head and shoulders better, so this one gets a 4.5. Oh. I think they're almost there, man. Honestly, I can. This is an album. I say this a lot, and I sometimes forget, but this is an album I've listened to a lot this year. It's just so much fun. Like I smile when I'm listening to it. I like albums that make me smile, and this is one that makes me smile. I've been playing it a lot in the car, much to the chagrin of my family, who maybe aren't as on board as I am. Plus, the artwork appears on the monitor. There's a lot of sweaty, naked, corpse-painted men with amps in the background. You know what I call that? Good time. 4.5 out of 5 from this guy.
Nice. I was a 3 out of 5 on their debut. This one I feel is like just another step up. Definitely found more personality in this one. Enjoyed this much more rewarding. I'm going to go 4 out of 5 on this one. I feel like I will come back to this much more than I did the debut album. So that is Håndgemeng and Satanic Panic Attack, out on April 11th on Ripple Music. Links below at the band to the pre-order, one of the singles. Check it out, have a listen, see what you think. Let us know in the comments below what you think. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.